Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome back to the channel. I really appreciate you guys tuning in to another video. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to the channel, like this video, drop me a comment below, let me know what's up, and let's dive right into this one. So today it's still summertime and we're talking summer fishing. And on this channel you'll see I talk new school sometimes, I talk old school sometimes. And I think, as a bass fisherman, it's important to be versed in both, right? Be up with the new trends in technology and fishing, but also don't forget about the stuff that's helped us catch bass over the last 10, 20, 30, 40 years. And, one of those things, especially this time of year, is a worm. And, we got a lot of wormers watching this video. I'm a wormer. But there's one series of baits in particular that to me doesn't get near the credit it probably should, and it's caught so many fish over the years, and that would be a curly or ribbon-tailed worm, especially this time of year in the summertime. I throw a lot of straight tails. However, I feel like this is the time for the curly tail. A lot of reasons why this is good, but the first thing, worming, it's easy. It's easy fishing. What's cool about it is you could give one of these things to a kid or someone that's never fished before, put it in their hand, tell them to cast it out, drag it on the bottom, and they're going to catch fish. But it's also equally, or obviously more deadly, in an experienced angler's hands. A worm just flat out catches them. Another reason I love a worm this time of year is it gets the big bites. It's these fish this time of year, at times you can get them to react and chase, but they're always willing to pick up a big worm that's crawling on the bottom. And man, I've caught so many big fish this time of year. Morning, midday, evening, after dark. It just gets big bites this time of year. You wonder, like, what are the fish thinking when they see this worm? And I don't think they actually think that they're eating a worm or a snake or anything like that. I really think it looks like a shad to them. That curly tail in the water, as that curly tail kind of just dances through the water column, I really think, that swimming motion mimics a shad. And, it could be a bluegill, could be anything, but it's a bait fish. And to me, that's what I think the fish see with this thing. So, in particular, the Berkley power worm. Like I said, the straight tail worms are great, but the power worm, and we're going to talk all the way from the 4-inch today to the 8.5 right here to the 10 and 12-inch. They're all good, and it's funny, it's funny, you think the little one would be for little fish? I've caught gigantic bass on the smallest one, and I've caught big ones on the big one too, but I've caught, 10 inchers on the 10-inch worm. The thing just flat out gets bit this time of year. So we'll start small, and then we'll work our way up through the lineup, and we'll talk about when, where, and how I like to fish these things. You can see it's like a lot of green pumpkin on the table right here. I love green pumpkin. I throw some plum. I throw a couple other colors, but green pumpkin's a great place to start. And anytime that the fishing is a little bit tough, I throw it on a drop shot a lot. I'll throw it on a small Texas rig at times, especially when I'm fishing tidal water and stuff in the summertime. But this little I can't remember if it's a 4 or 4.5 inch. Right in front of me, it's 4-inch. 4-inch power worm. I caught a bunch of fish on it this morning, fished with my buddy Sean. This 4-inch power worm is an absolute killer. I rig it on a drop shot. You can see I've got a straight shank worm hook, 3/16 ounce tungsten weight. At times I'll dip this tail in chartreuse, when I'm trying to mimic bluegill. A little bit of chartreuse in the tail never hurt. It really makes it look more like a bluegill. But as you're fishing this thing along, this tail is just swimming. It literally looks just like a fish tail swimming along, and it is such a little killer. The green pumpkin works good everywhere. They make a kind of a purple color, a plum color. It works really, really well as well. But I keep it simple, man. I throw this thing on a spinning rod. I use my typical, my 610 medium light signature series Abu Garcia drop shot rod for drop shotting it. If I'm going to Texas rig it, I'll go up to a 7-foot medium action. It's typically going to be on 6 or 8 pound test line. Again, the lightest weight possible. If I'm Texas rigging it, I'm using like a eighth ounce weight. If I am drop shotting this thing at 3/16, and just make it look really natural. You could fish it at any depth, but it's an underrated bait. It doesn't get bit. And I'll tell you one other thing about this that's cool is the way it holds up. I can catch a lot of times 3, 4, 5 fish on one drop shot worm, which I can't quite say about all drop shot worms on the market. I love a worm. I mean, hey, if it's a one fish and done, I'll use it because I want to catch fish. But it's a nice plus when a bait has got a little bit more meat to it and you can catch a few fish on one bait. And that's definitely something that you could do with a 4-inch power worm. So I love it. As we step up, the 8.5 inch. I know they make a 7. I don't throw the 7 quite as much, but the 8.5 incher is a great medium size. I throw it on a quarter ounce, 3/8 ounce, tungsten weight, Texas rigged. You can definitely Carolina rig it, but you know we're stepping up big time here. We're going from finesse to kind of medium here. I'm throwing to throw it on like a 7.3 or 7.6 medium heavy rod, 15 to 17 pound test trilene fluorocarbon, and I'm throwing it. What's cool about the Texas rig is it goes through like brush really well. In the summertime, we fish a lot of trees, brush piles, stuff like that. There's not a better brush pile bait than a Texas rigged worm. So you cast it in there, fish it through. That little bit heavier line allows you to get that fish out of the cover when you do get that bite. But man, it's a great way to catch fish. I throw the 10-inch a lot. I probably throw the 10-inch even more than I throw the 8.5. I like the 10-inch during the day, at night. Again, I'll start with green pumpkin a lot of times. If the water's super clear, I'll throw watermelon. Plum is a really good color when you get a little bit of color into the water. And then, you know, one little thing, I've talked about this a little bit before on some of my other social platforms, maybe on YouTube one time, but this is the motor oil red flake. And this thing, guys, if you night fish, if you can get your hands on some of these, if you use a black light, this worm glows in the dark. So it sounds crazy, but it glows in the dark, and you can see it with your black light. It doesn't glow in the dark if you don't have a black light, but if you have a black light, it shows up like it's literally on fire. So what I like about that, what that does for me is it allows me to kind of know where I'm casting. A lot of times I'm close to the bank, and I'm trying to make close casts to the bank or the walls that I'm fishing. And using that color allows me to do so. So it's pretty neat. You know, that color works during the day, but I always keep some on hand, especially if I'm going to be night fishing, because that thing it glows in the dark with a black light. Pretty cool. But overall, it's kind of a quicker video, but I just more than anything, don't forget the curly tail worms this time of year. You see so much about the minnows and the crankbaits and the spoons, and that's all stuff I do. You've seen it on this channel. But the worm is a killer. And if you're gonna worm, and if you're ever gonna throw a worm with a curly tail or ribbon tail, now is the time. It's the summertime. They want more action is better than less action this time of year. There's a lot of times of year where it's the opposite of that. But more action is better than less action. You want to fool those fish and make them think that your bait's moving fast rather than slow. And when they see that tail going like that, even though the bait's not moving fast, they think the bait's moving fast, and it triggers a reaction strike. And a reaction strike is what you're looking for this time of year. And with weights, like I said, you know, with the drop shot, I'm going fairly light because it's a finesse technique. But with the bigger worms, I'm going anywhere from a 1/4 ounce to a 3/8 on the 8.5 inch. And then when I go up to the 10 and the 12 inch, I'll use up to a 1/2 ounce weight, just depending on wind and depth and stuff like that. But drop a comment below if you guys like fishing power worms. It's one of my favorite old school ways to catch fish. I've caught a ton of big fish on them countrywide, and it's something that no matter how far technology goes, you'll always find one of these tied on in my boat this time of year.